rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Well, yeah, Saturday didn't quite work out like I wanted. But that's okay. We're negotiating on when to bring Becky back in, and we're gonna get this done. I'm telling you, we're gonna get this done. So hopefully it'll be soon in the next maybe as early as Wednesday. I don't know. We'll see. Also, I am currently working on another guest, which I think you will all find it very entertaining and enlightening. More on that coming up, but I'm working on getting that one scheduled too. So we'll get a couple of interviews here in the month of November. So that'll be awesome. Anyway, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight is U.S. Abbey Girl is up for the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with U.S. Abbey Girl as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank you, U.S. Abbey Girl, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. My heart stopped for a second there because it didn't light off right away, and I forgot there is a bit of a gap. I put in a little bit of a pause in there. But anyway, if you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing or reciting the pledge in your style. Then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, send it off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. Also, too, don't forget, if you're doing this on your phone, you can use share. You can use share as the option, and that should get you to be able to send the file to the same place. Send it to, of course, fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. All right. Tonight's headline sponsor is, oh goodness, help if I actually got this stuff put in first. TheFlagShirt.com. TheFlagShirt.com is where you can go to grab yourself some patriotic gear, whether it is men's, women's, made in the USA, kids, accessories, all in the wonderful red, white, and blue. I am wearing, again, one of their fabulous men's cotton polos. Great products. They have fantastic patriotic styles together. This one here is the We the People Liberty Bell shirt. And you can go and check all of that out at theflagshirt.com. And if you order $75 or more of their product, you will receive free shipping like always. But I know not everybody can do a $75 or more order. Maybe you only want one shirt. Maybe you just want a few accessories for that patriotic party, like, well, I don't know, Veterans Day coming up, for an example. Or possibly even, let's see. Yeah, so Veterans Day is what I'm thinking of. So maybe you'll be able to just grab a few things or whatever. Well, I'm going to help you out with that. Because what I'm going to do is, if you head off to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, that's flagshirt www.americanperspective.online. You will be presented with a coupon code. You can copy and paste that coupon code or that promo code in the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com. And when you do that, you will be given $5 off your order. So once again, go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. You'll be presented with a coupon code. Copy and paste that code in the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com. And you will receive $5 off your order at theflagshirt.com. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. Yeah, just like me, get patriotized. Speaking of patriotism and patriot type of people, it is so difficult for me to comprehend the number of people that literally do not understand or know at least the basics of our Constitution. It is so disheartening, I'm just going to say it right now, that these people who are out there who think that they know the Constitution, who think that they, just because they've been through, I don't know, some kind of educational school or maybe even run off to college, that they have the lockstep on knowledge, that just because they have a degree, they are smarter than you. Folks, let me just put it to you this way. Intelligence does not come with a degree. Intelligence does not come with years of education. What comes with years of education is the ability to regurgitate facts, well, perceived facts, whatever it is that you learned on that, and going and regurgitating it on command in the proper format when it comes to doing things like tests and that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not saying that people who go to college are automatically idiots and stupid. No, because, I myself have gone to college. I do have a 4-year degree, but I do not sit here and tell you that just because I have a 4-year degree, I'm smarter than you. I certainly don't use it as a crutch to say, well, guess what? I know better than you. I am an elitist. No, I don't do that. Because I don't. I am not necessarily smarter than the next person. I'm smarter than all of the morons who are out there running around thinking that just because they have a college degree, they are just automatically smarter. This doesn't work like the Wizard of Oz, where you get handed a degree, a doctorate degree piece of paper, and all of a sudden the brainless straw man, scarecrow, all of a sudden can spout off a whole bunch of crap. No, that's not the case. That is not the case. I promise you that is not the case. But I had a couple of people on Facebook. I have actually quite a few people on Facebook who are sitting there and are trying to tell me that just because they went to college, they are smarter than me. Yeah, that ain't going to fly, folks. That ain't going to fly. And especially when it comes to things like the United States history and the Constitution and how the Constitution actually works, I'm fairly certain I may not be at like a Mark Levin level or a Paul Engel level of knowledge and understanding, but I'm up there. I know I'm certainly up there higher than a lot of the average Americans who are running around, especially on the left, who are running around trying to say that there are several things that Trump is doing that's unconstitutional. Yeah, well, I got a couple of them tonight, so hang and bear with me, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. But first, has anybody seen the whitehouse.gov website? Look, I got to tell you, if not for no other reason. For no other reason, Donald Trump is got to be the most trolling president. If he ends up going down in the history books for anything, I'm telling you, being the master troller, okay, the master troller. Oh my gosh. Check this thing out. So this is on the whitehouse.gov website. So if you head off to whitehouse.gov/my safe space. That's right. Whitehouse, all one word, .gov/my safe space. And this is what you're presented with. It's all about Hakeem Jeffries. And as you can see, it's got the sombrero that they've been, putting up about Hakeem Jeffries and stuff like that. And they've got blog entries from Hakeem and his latest entry of his blog. And apparently you can subscribe to the blog. And then it says, Hakeem is in your extended shutdown network. There's an ad for Trump RX, which is a prescription for red pills or whatever. It says, my safe space, a place for Dems. It's even got some fake blog stuff and his top friends, Hakeem Jeffries' top friends. But here, let me zoom in a little bit here. Here's some of his blurbs. It's just a mess. Oh, his heroes that he has listed. It's like anyone who identifies as a radical leftist, transnational gangs, and illegal immigrants. Those are who his heroes are, who he'd like to meet. He goes, honestly, we couldn't meet enough members of Antifa or illegal immigrants. They are so awesome. Oh my gosh. Oh man. Oh, well, thanks, Coco, for putting in the website. That was awesome. But anyway, yeah, there's his nicknames: Sombrero Guy, Timu Obama, Dollar Store Obama, and Chuck E. Cheese Obama. And then here's some of his best friends. Chucky, and then real Chucky. Oh my gosh. They just, I'm telling you, trolling is definitely happening with this administration. Oh Lord. Anyway, I wanted to bring that to you. So you could do that. Anyway, well, let's get down to it. SNAP, obviously. SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, was shut down on November 1st, as promised, for a moment. And yes, I do say for a moment, but here is the reason why. Now, this is Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins explained why the U.S. Department of Agriculture cannot or doesn't have the authority to, or the funding to keep SNAP running on its own. Okay? So, here, let's go ahead and take a listen to her. Oh, if it'll play for me.
I appreciate the opportunity to explain that. So the fact that the Democrats are saying, but wait, USDA has money in their accounts, why it is really their fault, I've seen it over and over and over from some of their leaders, is absolute false, and it is a lie. We have been saying on October 10th, we sent messages out. On October 24th, we sent messages out. These benefits end on November 1st. Now, let me get down into a little bit of the details on that to better explain. So there is a contingency fund at USDA, but that contingency fund, by the way, doesn't even cover, I think, half of the $9.2 billion that would be required for November SNAP, but it is only allowed to flow if the underlying program is funded. It's called a contingency fund. And by law, contingency fund can only flow when the underlying fund is flowing. So for example, if today the Democrats say, oh, never mind, sorry, we'll open the government, and SNAP flows, Hurricane Melissa or one of the hurricanes hits, that's the contingency fund that we would use to send more money into the vulnerable communities that are harmed by a specific event like a hurricane. But it is a contingency fund that can only flow if the underlying appropriation is approved. And listen, even if it could flow, it doesn't even cover half of the month of November. So here we are again in 2 weeks having the exact same conversation.
All right. So that pretty much covers essentially why the Trump administration was holding back and saying, look, we can't do this. Now, as we all know, a federal court judge, went ahead and ordered the Trump administration to go ahead and start funding SNAP. And of course, they responded back to the federal judge and say, well, we can't legally, so why don't you tell us how we can legally do this? Well, apparently they have said that they were going to go ahead and fund at least partially. So here in the Epic Times, Trump admin will partially fund November food stamps, according to a filing. And so they're going to fund them at reduced levels. So they are going to use the contingency fund, but will not use any additional money. So this basically means that the SNAP recipients will receive only about half as much of the benefits as they usually do. And the government, by the way, met its deadline on noon today to give an update on funding the federal food stamp program for November. This particular one, Judge Jack McConnell of the U.S. District Court for the District of Rhode Island previously ruled that the USDA had to at least partially fund the November benefits by using contingency money allocated in federal law, as may become necessary to carry out program operations. So McConnell said on the November 1st order that because of the lack of appropriations for the fiscal year 2026, i.e. the shutdown, the use of those contingency funds has now become required because available funding is necessary to carry out the program operations. So this is what they were talking about in terms of the allocation of the contingency funds. Congress allocated $6 billion in contingency funds, but nearly $1 billion has already been spent, according to administration officials. Officials had resisted using the contingency money, saying that it was unavailable because there was no more underlying funding for SNAP in place because of the government shutdown. And Congress, by the way, has still not reached a deal to reopen the government to provide new funding for the SNAP benefits. So, yeah. Anyway, Trump said later that day that he had directed the White House lawyers to seek clarification on how McConnell had ruled and how the administration could keep funding it. Now, this is the part that's really kind of shocking, is that it costs about $9 billion, yes, that's with a B, billion to fund SNAP each month. SNAP pays about an average of $187.20 per month to electronic cards for about 42 million people, according to the USDA. Now, McConnell suggested on November 1st that officials should find the additional funds necessary beyond the contingency funds to fully fund the November SNAP payments. He said they could draw from the tranche of more than $23 billion that came from tariffs. Now, I don't know if that's even going to be able to have that done. Again, I don't know. Anyway, he said that if officials chose to fully fund November payments, they must do so by the end of November 3rd. However, if officials decide to not fully fund the November benefits, They are to use the total remaining contingency funds to make partial payments by November 5th. So, yeah. Officials also said that officials also said on November 3rd that they had recently paid $450 million in contingency funds to states for SNAP administrative expenses and $300 million for unrelated grants. They said that they will pay another $450 million for SNAP operations and an additional $150 million for nutritional assistance program grants. So that leaves roughly $4.6 billion in contingency money for the November SNAP benefits, which will all be obligated to cover 50% of eligible households' current allotments. Patrick Penn, a USDA official, said in a declaration to the court. So, yeah. Anyway, so it looks like Trump is going to do the best that he can to try and, fund everything for everyone on SNAP. At least he's giving it a try, even though legally they couldn't do it, but now they're under court order. I have a feeling that this is going to hit the appeals court realistically and probably get overturned anyway, because realistically, like I said, and I've said this before, which this kind of feeds into the constitutional section of our show, but not really covering this, but I've been saying this for multiple times, which is in a sense that Congress created the lower court system. The only court system constitutionally allowed to overrule or check and balance the other two is the Supreme Court. So if the Supreme Court decides, yeah, no, that's not the case, you can't do that, well, there you go. So anyway. All right. Well, here's another court. This one, again, maybe overstepping its boundaries. And this one is really freaking... I don't know where these federal judges get off thinking that they have the ability to do this. I really don't. But this federal judge in Oregon ruled on Sunday, yesterday, that President Donald Trump likely lacked the authority to federalize the Oregon National Guard to assist federal agents protecting the U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Facility in Portland, which has faced near daily unlawful demonstrations since early June. Folks, I don't know how many times I can tell you this. And by the way, just so everybody is aware, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the circuit court that covers Oregon, Washington, and California, they've already overturned the California court federal judge that tried to do this for the LA deployment of the National Guard. So they've already ruled on this. They've already said, hey, guess what? You can't do that, because of the fact that the president has command and control of the troops. Now, I want to show you something. Yes, I do. I want to show you something. Because there was a gentleman or a lady, I don't know, some account that came up and said, hey, deploying National Guard troops against American citizens is illegal because of the Posse Comitatus Act. And while they are sort of correct, they also said that because of the Posse Comitatus Act and the Constitution, now this is the part that's really the problem, and the Constitution, it was in the Constitution that the federal troops cannot be used against citizens. Really? Yeah. Well, I, of course, called bullshit. I did. I called BS on that because I have read the Constitution a few times. I've lost count how many. But I've read the Constitution a few times. And, I have this wonderful little pocket thing right here. Oh, what does that say? Oh, it says the Constitution of the United States of America. And I guarantee you this is right here in my possession. And I actually have like 5 or 6 different variations of the Constitution, folks. So here, let me go ahead and point something out to those of you who seem to think that it is unconstitutional to use the troops. To use the troops against the American people. Here. This is from the constitutioncenter.org. And this is a full text of the Constitution. Oh, hey. Guess what? Guess what? Oh, let's read this line right here. You know how I keep referencing Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution? Well, guess what? This is Article 1, Section 8. You can see it right here. Section 8, Powers of Congress. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and take a look. What are the powers of Congress? Oh, let's go down to the 19th paragraph. Ooh, I've got it highlighted here. What do you think it might be? Oh, well, take a look at this. It says, literally, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the unions. To provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the union. And suppress insurrections and repel invasions. So those are three separate items. 3 separate items, clearly. The first is to execute the laws of the union. And that's to call forth the militia. Now, you got to remember, folks, you've got to remember that the founding fathers did not, under any circumstances, believe in a standing army. And in fact, we didn't actually have a standing army for many years. It was all based off of the militia in this country. It wasn't until we started having a standing army that the Army and the National Guard in particular became reality. In fact, there is some ties, although this isn't an exact direct reflection of what the militia is, because by definition, the militia is every single male above the age of 17 who is able to serve and basically carry a weapon and fight. I mean, that pretty much covers the entire militia, is every able-bodied. Nowadays, it would probably be considered every able-bodied person. But, look, folks, straight up. To provide, and this is Article 1, Section 8, so this allows Congress to create a law that says, oh, okay, this guy, yeah. You're a moron. Maybe you ought to listen very carefully to what I'm telling you. Very carefully, you ought to listen to what I'm telling you. Because it provides for the calling forth of the militia. Right there, to execute the laws of the Union. What part? What part of that is ambiguous? Now, what did Congress do? Because Congress created something. Oh, yes. Yes, let me explain to you really quickly. Congress put forth, what's this? Oh. Nope, I got to back it up so you can see it. Wow. Title 10, United States Code, Section 252. The use of militia and armed forces to enforce federal authority. Oh my goodness. Hey, yo, Mr. whatever your name was, Liberty Knucklehead, that was trying to get into my Rumble chat and say that I was wrong. Oh, read this. Jackasses. Anyway, read this right here. Whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblages, or rebellion against the authority of the United States make it impractical to enforce the law of the United States in any state by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings, he may call into federal service such of the militia of any state. Yeah. Really? Really? Hey, yo, Mr. Liberty asshole, whatever your name is. I don't even care anymore, honestly. But if you're still listening, you just got schooled, homie. Because right here is Title 10, U.S. Code 252, which is part of the Insurrection Act of 1807. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You jackasses. God. And it's, you know what? It's even more so than that, because here is 253. Oh my gosh. Title 10, U.S. Code 253, interference with state and federal law. Yeah. Here it is. The president, by using the militia or, hold up here. Take a look at this. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine this. Oh, this is so bad. Or the armed forces or both. Really? Really? Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, there's more. There's plenty more. Oh, you people. I'm telling you, I'm sitting here. I research. I understand. I do nothing but tell the truth, folks. That's it. I can't say anything else. If I don't know the answer, I will literally tell you I don't know, because I am an honest person. I have integrity. Folks, this is literally it. This is the Insurrection Act. The president, by using the militia or the armed forces or both, or by any other means, shall take such measures he considers necessary to suppress in a state any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or conspiracy, if it, and here is the key, number 1, so hinders the execution of the laws of that state and of the United States within that state, that any part or class of its people be deprived of a right, privilege, immunity, or protection named in the Constitution and secured by law, and the Constitution or constituted authorities of that state are unable, here's another one, fail, my head's in the way, or refuses, and here's the key, oh yes, if the constituted authorities of that state are unable, fail, or refuse to protect that right, privilege, or immunity, or give that protection, or blah, blah, blah. So in other words, folks, I don't know what else to tell you. The president has the congressional and constitutional authority to deploy the militia or the armed forces or anything to enforce federal law. What part of that do you not understand? This federal judge in Oregon is going to find out when this is appealed, which, by the way, she's only issued a temporary stay for this, but she is going to find out. She is going to find out that this is not something that she can do. This is not something that she can do. Now, let me point something else out to you leftists. And I'm not talking about my Whiskey Warrior P1s. You guys know really what's going on. I mean, I've talked about a lot of this stuff already multiple times. Let's go back to the Constitution here. And let's talk specifically with regards to what the courts themselves can or cannot do. And let's go down to Article 3. I skipped right over it really quick. Oh. Well, let's see. Right here. No, the first sentence. The judicial power of the United States. Oops, I need to back off, sorry. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. May from time to time. So in other words, Congress can not only create these courts, but they can also get rid of them at the same time. So, okay, if that's the case, then what that means is that Congress is conferring powers to these courts. That Congress is setting these courts up specifically. So how is it that Congress can confer a power, meaning the ability of these lower courts to override the equal branch known as the presidency? How is it that these lower courts have that power? They don't. That's the point. Because there is only one Supreme Court. And it is all vested in that one Supreme Court in terms of being able to check and balance the other two co-equal branches. That's it. This is why the federal courts below cannot issue blanket nationwide injunctions. This is why the courts below cannot, by a order, blanketly say, hey, Mr. President, you need to enforce the law. Whatever that law is. Now, we already know constitutionally the president has to enforce the law pretty much as written. We already know that. That's part of his job. That's part of his responsibility, as the Constitution has stated. And I know a lot of people keep asking, what happens if the president does not follow these lower court decisions? Well, it does actually set up a constitutional crisis, but it's not like Trump would be the first president who has done that, because we've had that happen in the past. We have had a couple of presidents who actually even defied the Supreme Court. See, the Supreme Court issued a ruling. I believe it might have been, I think it was Andrew Jackson, honestly, if I recall correctly, although don't quote me on that. I'd have to look that up. But I believe it was Andrew Jackson who basically flipped the Supreme Court the bird during his presidency. And he basically said, yeah, no, not going to happen. And he flipped him the bird. Folks, what you are seeing with all of these courts and all of these opinions and all of these things, what you are seeing is you are seeing a lack of understanding, not only in our judicial system, but also in the people of the United States, that, all of these things are coming to a head. And this is why SCOTUS needs to actually stand up and go, you know what? All you lower court systems, you need to go, yeah. You need to go, that's our job, not yours. You guys don't have that power. Because Congress doesn't have the power to tell the executive or even the Supreme Court necessarily how to do their job, except for what the Constitution allows them to do. See, and that's the problem, is that these people don't seem to get it. These people seem to think that Congress has all of these powers that are allowable. Oh, really? They have all these powers. Like, for an example, that Congress can just magically create a law out of thin air, and that law is all of a sudden like, ugh, that exists. Well, I hate to tell you this too, folks. All you leftist morons. I hate to tell you this. But, yeah, that ain't the case. And for this, by the way, for anybody that does pay attention, okay, that does pay attention, there is this section in the article or in the Constitution that basically outlines the enumerated powers of the federal government. What section is that? Oh my gosh. Article 1, Section 8. Right here. Right here. The powers of Congress. Article 1, Section 8. Now, in this, there are, I believe it's 18 different items that are listed here that are the powers of Congress. Now, a lot of people sit there and they think, oh, yeah, Congress can just make whatever law that they want. Well, no, they can't. They do because the people and our checks and balance system is not, for an example, the president has not taken Congress to court over this stuff. But let me explain, because I really think a lot of people need to understand this. See, there's these little things known as the Federalist Papers. The Federalist Papers, written by what is considered to be the author of the Constitution, for the most part, with a couple of other people kind of adding in. But the majority of the Federalist Papers were written by none other than James Madison. And James Madison, yeah, he specifically pointed out a few things. Now, for those of you who are writing this stuff down because you're going to double check my work or whatever, or maybe, honestly, you really want to know, you really want to understand this, what I'm about to show you is 3 of the Federalist articles. Federalist number 14, Federalist number 41, and Federalist number 45. These are 3 separate locations. 3 separate locations where James Madison clearly states that the federal government does not have broad power to just create whatever it wants, whenever it wants. Right here, I have highlighted in blue up above my head. It says, in the first place, now keep in mind, I'm in the middle of this. I'm in the middle of the Federalist 14. In the first place, it is to be remembered that the general government is not to be charged with the whole power of making and administering laws. And this is the key. This next line, folks. Its jurisdiction is limited to certain enumerated objects, which concern all the members of the Republic, but which are not to be obtained by the separate provisions of any. So in other words, what he's saying here is that the federal government's jurisdiction under the Constitution is literally limited to the list I just gave you in Article 1, Section 8. Now, you want to know what the government can and cannot do? Read that section. Read that article. Grab your Constitution. You can even do it online. I've already given you the full text of the Constitution. And you can go and check it out. Now, he continues with Federalist 41. And here, which I have highlighted in gray, says this. That we may form a correct judgment on this subject, it will be proper to review the several powers conferred on the government of the Union, and that this may be the more conveniently done, that they may be reduced into different classes as they relate to the following different subjects. So here we go. All right. He's got 6 items listed here as the different objects of what the federal government can do. Number 1, security against foreign danger. Number 2, regulation of the intercourse with foreign nations. Number 3, maintenance of harmony and proper intercourse among the states. Number 4, miscellaneous objects of general utility. Number 5, restraint of the states from certain injurious acts. And number 6, provisions for giving due efficacy to all of these powers. Do you see anything listed here in terms of things like SNAP benefits, things like, health care, things like, Social Security, things like Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare, any of this stuff? I mean, do you seriously see in this list, this concise list of 6 items, anything at all? Well, let me explain. If you have questions as to what the purpose of the federal government actually is, James Madison did it again in Federalist 45. And this time he literally plays it out. He actually plays, what am I saying? Lays it out. Here, right here. Quote, the powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. How much more clearer can you be right here? He even continues. He says the former, which for those of you who lack a English comprehension skills, former means the powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government. Okay. The former will be exercised principally on external objects as war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce. So in other words, the federal government is to concern itself, for the most part, to anything from our borders outward. Okay? Then he continues and says, with which the power of taxation will, for the most part, be connected. In other words, the power of taxation is on foreign commerce. Things like tariffs. Anyway, he continues, and I mean James Madison. He continues, the powers reserved to the several states will extend to all objects which, in the ordinary course of affairs, concern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people, and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. Now, what part of that you guys not understand? The states deal with the people, the internal course of affairs, the lives, liberties, properties of the people. He also points out the operations of the federal government will be most extensive and important in times of war and danger. Those of the state governments in times of peace and security. So, again, he is clearly defining and stating that with the Constitution, the federal government is not to get involved in the affairs of the everyday average people on a regular basis. That's what this does. I don't understand why you people do not understand this. This is a basic tenet of our civics. This is a basic tenet of our understanding as to how our federalist system of government works. Now, there are some people, by the way, who misinterpret this first power of Congress incorrectly. Now, just to point out clearly that the words, and by the way, I might end up going over time here, just so you understand, but this is really important. This statement, general welfare. Yes, they seem to believe, all these people seem to believe that this first item in Article 1, Section 8 clearly defines that, oh yeah, the federal government is supposed to be able to do anything within the general welfare. Like they can create whatever they want. Except there's only one thing that I want to point out. This first object is regards to having the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to be able to pay for the debts of the government. So this has nothing to do with this first paragraph has nothing to do with whether or not Congress has the ability to just create whatever the hell they want in terms of law. This is specifically saying that Congress has the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to be able to pay for things like the common defense and what they consider the general welfare. It does not give Congress the power to just create whatever kind of laws they want. And in fact, this is even supported by, once again, the under 45. Where is it here? Wait a minute. Is it 45 or 41? I think it might be 41. No, yeah, it's 41. So this is also supported by James Madison in Federalist 41, because he comes down and he even talks about that statement, that specific statement. He says, where I'm trying to find it here because it's down here a little bit. Okay. Taxes imported, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, here we go. So right here, he even points this out. He says, some who have not denied the necessity of the power of taxation have grounded a very fierce attack against the Constitution on the language in which it is defined. It has been urged and echoed that the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States amounts to an unlimited commission to exercise every power which may be alleged for the necessity or necessary for the common defense or general welfare. And he essentially dismisses that. He says that is a misconstruction. In other words, it's been misconstrued. He says had no other enumeration or definition of powers of the Congress been found in the Constitution than the general expressions just cited, the authors of the objection might have had some color for it, though it would have been difficult to find a reason for so awkward a form of describing an authority to legislate in all possible cases. He literally states, if we as the framers, or me as the author of the Constitution, had meant that Congress could do whatever the hell it wanted, I wouldn't have even bothered to list all of the things that Congress is allowed to do. He basically says, if I had not listed them out specifically, then yes, general welfare could have encompassed anything. And people argued with him, most likely the anti-federalists, argued with him about the idea of him leaving the common defense and general welfare of the United States. Ah, folks, this is and I got to tell you too, I mean, even back when I was in school, all right, even back when I was in school, this wasn't necessarily, you know, the way that my teachers taught it. And in fact, I'm just going to say that there is a difference in where he wrote this with regards to the first item in the list, okay, where he says that it provides for the common defense and general welfare, which again is talking about the power of collecting taxes to be able to pay for all of this stuff. But let me just point out that in the preamble to the Constitution, that same kind of phrasing, and let me go up here to the preamble, that same kind of phrasing points out, it says, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare. Okay, so let's ask this. Let's ask this question. What does the word provide and the word promote actually mean? Well, we query Webster's Dictionary of 1828, and we take a look at the definition of provide. Provide, according to Webster, back then, was to procure beforehand, to get, collect, or make ready for future use, to prepare. It also means to furnish, to supply, followed by with. He also says to stipulate previously. The agreement that provides that the parties shall incur no loss provides again. He says to make previous conditional stipulation, to foresee, to provide in a transitive sense is followed by against or for. We provide warm clothing against the inclemencies, I should say, of the weather. So provide means that this is something that the Constitution or that the federal government is supposed to give. So if we go back to the preamble, provide for the common defense. So this common defense is what the government is supposed to provide for. But now he changes it in the next sentence, which is promote the general welfare. Not provide for the general welfare, but to promote the general welfare. So what did he mean by promote? He clearly made that separation in the preamble. And that was here. Promote. To forward. To advance. To contribute to the growth, enlargement, or excellence of anything valuable. To excite, as in to promote mutiny. To exalt, to elevate, to raise, prefer in rank or honor. So what Madison is saying in that preamble, and what was accepted by all of the states, every single one who has come in, is that we, as the Constitution, under this Constitution, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide, meaning we're going to give you the common defense, but we're going to do things that will elevate or increase or generally push the general welfare. Not that we're going to provide the general welfare, we're going to help to promote it. We're going to help it grow, help it get bigger, and so on and so forth, but not provide. And these are the words that were used in the Constitution, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not something that can be ignored. This is not something that can be abandoned or glossed over. The Constitution exists for the federal government to be as limited as possible, to be limited to just the articles that are in the Constitution only. Oh, and hey, by the way, even though James Madison did not believe that we actually needed them, there's this thing that was passed a couple of years after the ratification of the Constitution. It was passed and ratified a couple of years after the Constitution was written and ratified. And it was mostly proposed, by the way, by the anti-federalists who believed that the Constitution itself wasn't clear enough, even though James Madison argued and said many times, look, I don't know how much more clearer we can make this. There's this little thing known as the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights has the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. Guess what? This is number 10 right here. And it states, and I quote, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people." The 10th Amendment states everything that James Madison argued in Federalist 14, Federalist 41, and Federalist 45. It clearly states that if it's not written in the Constitution as a power given to the federal government, nor written in the Constitution as a power that is prohibited to the states, belongs to the states and the people. Either way, folks, I can't be any more clear than this. This is a historical and accurate representation of what the Constitution in this aspect, these three, honestly, aspects, point out. The federal government is not to be involved with our day-to-day lives. The federal government is not to be involved in all of these social programs and all of these wonderful things that all the Democrats expanded over time. This right here, and this is why I keep pointing out, the 10th Amendment is one of the most underused amendments of any of them. Most people know the first, most people know the second, a few might know the fifth, but not very many noticed 10th Amendment. And this is why I'm telling you what this federal government is doing to us, even in having the SNAP program, is unconstitutional. Clearly unconstitutional by all metrics that I've just laid out to you. So there you go. So you morons on the left who want to sit here and argue about all of these things, you are frankly wrong. You are wrong. You are out of your depth. You are out of your league. And that's it for me for tonight. I'm just getting, I got frustrated. I get frustrated whenever people try and tell me that they don't that they understand the Constitution and all this other stuff. Yeah. All right, folks. That is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor. If you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com. Get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, if you haven't already, hit those thumbs up, thumbs down, or in the case of 3 Chevy, the thumbs sideways across all of my platforms, whether it's YouTube, X, Facebook, and of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.